Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning.
I want to say good morning to Kathy and Daniela and Kara and Sam and Nanad. Thank you guys all for joining us this morning. And what we're going to be discussing today is the lockbox exchange. We're also going to be learning how to use CRS tax data, which is a member benefit that RVAR has purchased for all of us to use. So CRS tax data is a company that has consolidated all of the online records and all of the tax data that it can find online, including any data it can find from MLSs, and compiled all of that into one platform. And so we have added that as a link to our MLS page, and I'll show you how to access that. And they have a prospecting tool on there that we're going to learn how to use today. And then we're going to also learn how to use Prospects Plus, how to send out postcards. So I learned all of that last night on my couch for this class this morning. So once I got the hang of it, I think it'll be easier for you. You know, there's always a learning curve, and I definitely had a learning curve last night. But now I know exactly how to do it, and I can show you guys. So let's talk about the lockbox exchange. Many of us have already been and exchanged our lockboxes. This happens every 7 to 10 years or so. The battery life on the lockboxes does not last forever. And because of that, we have to exchange them. And we like to exchange them before the battery life drops below 50%, because then you just sort of start getting some outlier boxes that are going to die on properties, and then the key is trapped. So RVAR is hosting it all week. Today's the last day that Supra is here in person handling the exchange, and today they're down at the lake. RVAR will now be handling it from here, after today, from here on out. For a few weeks, you can go to RVAR and make your exchange. Now, Jennifer was able to go do curbside exchange, which was literally drive up and you pass your lockbox out the window and they pass you some new ones. So I hope that's something that will stay in future years. They were doing it because of coronavirus, but I think it was very convenient for the agents who have, 1 to 5 lockboxes. If you're like me and you had to use one of those luggage carts at the Holiday Inn to get all of your boxes of lockboxes into the ballroom, they were accommodating that as well. So I don't know why I have as many lockboxes as I do, but that takes me to my next topic, which is future use of the office lockboxes. So we have always had a lot of lockboxes and freely let agents borrow those. So it still is our opinion that it is expensive to become a real estate agent, and it's expensive in the beginning. So in the past, we've always just loaned our lockboxes to anyone who wants to borrow one. But of course, we've just discovered that many of them have gone permanently missing. So we are now going to have a deposit on borrowing lockboxes. We're still absolutely delighted for you to borrow a lockbox, but in addition to signing it out and signing it back in, we're going to be doing a $50 deposit as well, and you get that back at the conclusion of your borrowing term. So you'll check with Donna, and Donna will have a sign out sheet, and Jennifer or Donna will take your deposit. We'd prefer a check, because if we do a card, then we have to pay that like 3.5% processing fee on it, and then we actually end up spending money on the process. So we'd love for you to pay us with cash or check, and then we'll give it back to you as soon as you turn your lockbox back in. We just feel like if there's $50 here at the office waiting for you, you'll remember not to tuck it in the garage and forget all about it for 5 years. So, and I will say, I had an agent call me yesterday and say, "Hey, I found a little short, squat Supra lockbox. I think maybe you loaned that to me from the New River Valley. Have I cost you any money by accidentally leaving that in my garage?" And fortunately, New River Valley did their exchange 1-for-1 for the new Centralock lockboxes. So it did not cost me any money that it was missing. However, that's what happens. You come back from pulling everything off a listing, and I am as guilty as anyone. And that lockbox rides around in my trunk or ends up in our shed, and then I forget it's there. So hopefully you won't forget you've left $50 at the office, and you'll just bring the lockbox back. So that's how we're going to be doing that from now on. Again, we're still delighted to loan them out. Okay. Now the new lockboxes are going to have the 1-day showing code. I'm still waiting to find out. And I'm going to ask Donna to do this, pretty please, Donna, to find out if you are not the owner of the lockbox, can you still issue the 1-day code? I know right now you can't, because then buyer's agents could be issuing 1-day codes off of listing agents' lockboxes, and that's not allowed. But I'm wondering, if you borrow a lockbox, are you able to if you have the shackle code, can you register it to yourself? Not own it, but register it to yourself, so that you are the authorized user, if you will. So I'm going to see if Donna will call Susan at RVAR today and ask her if that's how that works. Can you become an authorized user on a lockbox that you do not own? Because otherwise you may not want to borrow one from the office. You may want to purchase one so that you can issue 1-day codes as the listing agent. Okay, moving on. I'm getting ready to share my screen, and we're going to do how to use the CRS tax data to make CSV files. That's comma separated vector or something. It stands for something like that. What it means is it's the data in a way that mailing lists and mailing companies can use these addresses to do bulk mailings for you. Okay. Don't worry about trying to follow along right now, because we're recording the session and then I'll be posting it. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to go ahead and see how to do this. So I'm going to go to MLS. Can everybody see my screen? Thumbs up. Awesome. So I'm going to log into RVAR. I'm going to go over here to CRS tax search. And if you do not already have it on your header up here, then you just need to go to menu and go down here under taxes to CRS tax search. Now, if you click the button for the star, it's going to put it up on your header up there so that it's always up there. And I use it frequently, so I have a star next to it so that it'll always end up here on my menu. So I'm going to click CRS tax search. It's going to redirect there. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, now you've all used this, which is the property search. And I could say Salem City, let's look up a property, 939 Craig Avenue, and let's look at the tax records on it. But that's not what I want to do. What I want to do today is I want to click this button to the right, this tab to the right called prospecting. And when I click that, it's going to bring up the map, and I've already chosen Salem City. And what I was doing last night is I have a listing at 210 Buyer Drive. Please sell it for me. And it is a $529,000 house. It's 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 2 two-car garages. It's huge. It's beautiful. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to send a postcard to every single owner occupant in Salem who owns a house between $250,000 and $450,000, who has owned their house at least 5 years. Because I thought to myself, who is going to buy this house? And I think it's going to be somebody upsizing or making that next jump up in size of house and price point of house. So what I wanted to find out was, is there a way to use this prospecting tool to narrow it down that way? And I was excited to find out yes. And I'll tell you the value of this. When I went to Prospects Plus to send out the mailer, I was able to actually get address lists from them, but it was going to cost me $250 to buy the address list for all of the city of Salem. Okay. And I thought to myself, maybe CRS tax data will do that. In the back of my mind, I remembered that it had a prospecting tool. So instead of paying $250 to own the entire address list for the city of Salem through Prospects Plus, I just started tinkering over here on CRS Tax Suite and found out that I can do that, and I could even narrow it down. Now, Prospects Plus was letting me narrow it down to like some information like household income and things like that. CRS tax data actually had more filters I could apply. So what I did is I went here, I chose Salem City, and over to the left, I said owner type, and I said owner occupied. Now, you see there's absentee in-state and absentee out-of-state. That is how you get those postcards to your investment properties that say, we buy homes now, or we buy homes with cash. They're mailing postcards to absentee owners in-state. All that means is this system is scrubbing the list of addresses and omitting anyone who does not live in the home that is the address. Does that make sense? So if they are an absentee owner, meaning their mailing address on the tax records is different than the physical address of that property, then that's someone who owns the property but doesn't live in it. So they might want to sell their home. And that's how they're getting these address lists. So I'm going to choose owner occupied. And when I've chosen owner occupied, you see it narrows down my search results. I'm going to choose ownership duration, and I'm going to set that to 5 years to 15 years. Okay. There's no rhyme or reason to this. This is my own special sauce that I'm trying to decide who I think would be a good candidate for purchasing this listing of mine. I'm going to go to appraised value, and I'm going to say, I want these address owners' current home value to be $250,000 to $450,000, because I think these folks potentially would be in the market to move up to a $529,000 house. Okay. So that gives me 4,200. Oh, nope. I'm sorry. Let's see. I have 387 search results. That's one more than last night. Don't ask me why. So I'm happy with that. That's 387 postcards I will be sending out. And just so you know, that cost me last night about $230 to send out 387 postcards. But I feel good about that because I feel like I've really tailored it to who I think would be good candidates for my home. And my husband was sitting next to me on the couch last night while I was doing this. And I was saying to him, because we have our old house that we rent out. I was saying, you know how we get those random postcards that say, do you want to sell your house for cash? I said, this is how they're doing that. And the reason why they're doing that is they have filtered out and found out that we own that house but don't live in that house. So I said, I'm doing the same thing with these folks, and I'm just betting that these are the folks within the city of Salem limits that would be interested in purchasing our home. They wouldn't have to move their kids for school systems. They'd be able to essentially move up one level in price point and size and amenities. So now I have 387 people in Salem that potentially, hypothetically, would be interested in my listing. So I'm going to go here to this button on the right that says export. And it's saying, do you want to select all? Yes. I could remove one if I wanted to. So I am not going to look through this list and delete people. I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to click export. And it has just downloaded a file, and it's a spreadsheet file called CRS prospecting. Okay. Now that I have that file, I can do other things with it. I can make labels. I can go into Prospects Plus and have them send off postcards for me, or any other vendor who is offering to do mailings for me, including Vistaprint. Vistaprint does mailings as well. Now, another button here instead of export would be create labels. I didn't fiddle with this last night, but it looked very easy. So here you are. Which Avery type of label are you using? And you can send out the labels. Perhaps you just want to print these on plain paper and then hand address 387 actual letters. Maybe you want to do that. The other thing you can use this for is if you have a buyer who cannot find a property, then you could use this to narrow down to a subdivision and handwrite on all the envelopes and send them a letter saying, hey, I have a buyer. Here are their photos. lovely people. They are looking for a home in this subdivision. Would you be interested in selling? Okay. And this is how you would get the address lists for that. So we have exported our list. So now I'm going to go to Prospects Plus. Bear with me to see if I remember my password that I created last night. You know I probably don't. Anyone have any questions yet? If so, raise your hand, put up the thumb sign, whatever, and have Jennifer call on you while I remember what my password is. Ooh, first try. Okay. Here we are on Prospects Plus. Now, what I went to was products, and you'll see they have postcards, door hangers, folders, note cards, mailing lists that you can purchase. What I was interested in last night was postcards. And then it gave me several categories and said, what category of postcard are you trying to send? And this will show you, you've got back to school postcards, you've got autumn postcards. So I could use this if I want to go ahead and get my farm area organized and get a mailing list made for it. I could be sending out postcards as often as I please to my farm areas, okay? And for 386 just regular size postcards, glossy front, where they are going to be mailing them for me, it was $250. Now, I'm probably not doing that terribly often, but in this case, I've got a property that I think should have sold. It hasn't sold, and I want to give it an extra push. So you can upload your own design if you want. I just went into featured property. So when I went into feature property, meaning I have a listing that I want everyone to know about, I went into multi-photo postcards instead of the luxury because that made me think I was going to have to pay more money. So I went into multi-photo postcards. I chose the defaulted size with a gloss cover, first class mail. And then I said add list, and I clicked upload list. I went to choose file, and in my download folder was that export. So I double click that. Now, this took a little bit of a moment for me to figure out what I was looking at, okay? What it's recommending is it's somewhat smart. It's decided that I don't want to use column 1 in this document, which is the full name. I don't. And I don't want to use column 2, which is title. I could if I wanted to address it to Mr. Terry Hubbard. But quite frankly, I'm not going to be making any guesses about whether Terry is a man or a woman. So I'm not going to import that into Prospects Plus. Instead, it has already pre-chosen for me to load first name. See how that is now in there? It's not do not import. Now it's yes, I want name 1 first name. I do not want the middle name, but I do want the last name. The only thing I found in here that it was not importing that I thought it should was the address, which sounds silly, but it didn't pick the address. So I had to manually select that. So I'm skipping all the owner 2 info here, coming on down here, and you'll notice that column 11 was the owner address. It was not choosing that for some reason. So I labeled that as complete street address and had it chosen. When it's gray, it is chosen. Then it also chose city, state, zip, we're good to go. So the other thing I would recommend is name it. So go in here and name this what it is, because I may use this again, and I'm gonna say it's Salem 250 to 450, and I'm gonna go ahead and say 210 buyer, which is my listing that I was using this for, because I may want to go in and do another postcard if we're going to have an open house, okay? And then I'm going to say import list. Please wait, we're verifying your list. And there it is, that fast. There are 386 postcards going out at a total of $250.90. The reason being, I fall into this section, $250 to $499 pricing, which is 65 cents a postcard, and 65 cents times 386 postcards is $250.90. They're going to postage them for me, print them, and mail them for me. So I now have to choose what I want my postcard to look like. So in this case, I went down and I chose this blue one because you'll know I love my Wainwright blue. So I clicked that as my cover. That's going to be my glossy front. I chose this back, and all the while you can always upload your own design. I did not last night. It was 11 p.m. I was happy to go with a pre-made postcard. So now I've selected both, and I'm going to click next. Now, I'm going to double click and start editing this. And I'm going to call this Luxury Living in Salem. I'm going to change the address. I will tell you, I had a little struggle with the photos. They were a little frustrating. When I double click and go to put the photo in here, it does not automatically fill that space for some reason. And I was going to show this to Jennifer and ask her to fiddle around with it some and see if she can see how that shrunk it a little bit. Now, if I go ahead and try to make it fill the space, it doesn't even snap to the grid. It doesn't even stay where I want it to stay. So this was a little frustrating last night. And you'll see here, now I realize you're not actually, if I cover up this space with my hand, you're not actually going to see much of the mountain view, and it's going to be really tight cropped to the house. So eventually I figured out I needed to drag it further onto the screen where I could see it better. Click this button here to bring it to the top, bring it to the front. And then I used the crop tool, and I went ahead and cropped it like this, double clicked to finish the crop. And then when I stretched this out, I felt like I got a little more house in the photo. And the way I ended up doing it last night, I even had the mountain in there. But I'll tell you, it took me a little while to fiddle around with that and make the photo look the way I wanted it to look. Now, double clicking and inserting it was no problem at all. It's getting the photo on the page as well as I want it to be. And you want it to go all the way out to the edge because you want these to be what's called full bleed, so that when they cut the postcards out, you have photo all the way to the edge, okay? So when I'm done and happy with this front page of my postcard, I'm gonna click next. And here it's already set this up for me. Now, this information came from when I started my Prospects Plus account. It asked me a lot of information. What is your title? What is your license number? What is your email address? What is your website address? And I filled all that out. So it's going to automatically put those items on my, whatever it is I'm creating in Prospects Plus. Now here, I went ahead and put my actual message to my clients. And I said, you know, could this be your dream home? And I said, call me today for your tour. I kept it simple. I've got 3 seconds for them to pick this up out of their mailbox, look at the front, flip it over, and understand why in the world am I even getting this? So what I was asking myself is, and I asked my husband, I said, if you got a postcard in the mail today of a listing, would you be thinking, what is this? Why am I getting this? But if you flipped it over, what would explain to you why you were getting it? So we decided on, could this be your dream home? Call me today for your tour. And that would be self-explanatory, okay? And sort of give a reason why it was sitting in their mailbox. So the other thing I did was I opted to not have anything here. I had to give a tagline, so I just did Serving the Roanoke Valley. That's not really my tagline. I just put something in there so I could move on to the next page. So I've just deleted that and hit the space bar to clear out that space. And then I went ahead and lowered my logo down just to give a little bit more sort of eye breather here on the postcard so it wasn't quite so cluttered looking. The other thing I did is I appreciate that they have already put in this disclosure. And anytime you are sending a mailer, you must have a disclosure that you are not trying to solicit business from another agent, away from another agent, okay? Because it's a Realtor Code of Ethics violation to solicit business from a customer who already has a real estate agent working with them. So in this case, I'm mailing these out. These may go to a house that is currently on the market, and I do not want them to construe this as me trying to poach them, okay? So it already has this disclosure that says, if your property is now listed with a realtor or broker, please disregard this offer, as it is not our intention to solicit the offerings of other realtors or brokers. The information obtained herein is deemed reliable, but is not guaranteed. And then it has my license number one more time. Terrific. However, I'm paying $250 to mail these out, so I do not feel like giving free advertising space to Prospects Plus. So I'm going to back out the website for Prospects Plus and get rid of @Prospects, their trademark. Okay. Now, if they'd like to give me a hefty discount to keep that on there, happy to do it, but I don't think they're doing that. I did search the internet last night and found a promo code for 10% off. So I ended up getting 10% off. So it ended up being less money with taxes and everything. I spent about $236 to send this out. I'm probably not doing that for every listing, but again, I could put it into part of my marketing budget. If I wanted to. Now that I've figured this out, it's really pretty simple. And you just saw, I did it start to finish in like 15 minutes. So it really should not take much time. I'll tell you, I've thought about it for years, never really fiddled around with it, and I've been really pleased with it. I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute and we can answer some questions. Who has questions? Did that look simple enough that you feel like you could do that? That went faster than I thought it would. And you'll have to unmute yourself to contribute. But I would love for Jennifer, do you have something to say?
I'm glad that you figured that out, because I had not looked at that feature for prospecting on there, and I didn't realize it was that simple. So yeah.
It's very, very easy. And I was surprised at the number of filters available to filter out owner occupied versus absentee in-state and absentee out-of-state. You know, Smith Mountain Lake, a lot of that is absentee out of state, right? Mm-hmm. You know, because they're all second homes. And you could really filter out down at Smith Mountain Lake who owns a rental down there, who doesn't, who owns it as a second home, and who are the people who live there year round, you know? Any other questions? Anything about that before we move on to new business? Everybody feel like they could attempt that? Maybe if you watch the video one more time. Okay, it was pretty easy. Well, not last night. It's pretty easy watching me do it now, but it took a little while last night. Okay, so the only other new business I have is anything you guys might have. Anybody have any topics they want to chat about? Anything strange happening? We're seeing a lot of buyer's remorse and releases right now. That's very common for this market. Yesterday there were only like 977 listings, which is abysmally low for inventory. So that means buyers are buying quick. Buyers are buying without a lot of the protections in place that we usually afford them, just to feel like they can be competitive. So of course, then there's some buyer's remorse later when they feel rushed into their purchase. Anybody? No? Okay. All right. Well, it was a quickie this morning. I'll leave you guys to it. I challenge you to just make a couple of mailing lists. If you've got a Sunday afternoon, sit down and just make up 3 or 4 mailing lists that are at the ready. You know, I've already decided, at least within Salem, because it's such a small topographical area, I'm going to be able to just go ahead and set up some searches and have them saved. And then if I want to shoot something out, I can. So, okay.
Sam, I know you sent out a letter to your neighborhood. That would be a great way to do that as well, because I'm sure you had to sit and get those addresses, right? This would have done that for you.
Yeah, I got 2 listings that came up on my street and a for sale by owner. So that's 3. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do that Well, I don't have anything to do for 6 days.
There you go.
And, you know, my husband, who is obviously not in our business, you know, he was saying, oh my gosh, you're going to spend $250 mailing out postcards. But I said to him, if I get one listing out of that, I mean, potentially a buyer might come forward. They might not call me. They might call their agent and say, hey, I just got a postcard for a house that we might be interested in. Well, great. Then I would sell my listing. But they might also call me and say, hey, why did I get this? And I'll explain to them why I got it. And they might think to themselves, that agent actually knows what she's doing. I will keep her in mind when I go to sell my house, right?
They might see the price of your house and go, oh my gosh, I need to talk to this lady. We need to sell my house.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I am so thankful you guys joined us this morning. And we're going to be doing a new agent training at 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to be talking about working open houses for other agents. And we're going to be having a guest speaker, a special guest speaker this morning. Donna is going to be speaking about new agent perspective, her point of view as a new agent negotiating her first multiple offer situation, which was quite hairy and required Friday evening working. So she's going to give her point of view on that. And then we're going to be talking about our Get Business Quick idea on the new agent call. It's going to be pop buys. If you don't know what a pop buy is, you can either join us or watch the video later. So bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Hey.